The sky is still dark. Most people in Kiev are asleep. Then the silence breaks. Explosions echo across the city. Sirens begin to scream. Russian forces have just crossed the border into Ukraine on the order of Vladimir Putin, launching a full-scale invasion that will change modern warfare forever. Inside Kiev's defense network, a small group of Ukrainian military engineers and drone operators scramble to respond. Among them is a commander from the emerging Ukrainian drone reconnaissance movement, preparing systems that most armies still don't fully understand. A question suddenly rises across command rooms, bunkers, and mobile units. How do you fight an enemy that is bigger, stronger, and better equipped than you? And even more disturbing, how do you fight an army that can see you before you even see them? At that exact moment, Ukraine begins to rely on something the world once saw as a toy, a flying machine that costs less than a laptop, a drone. And within weeks, it will begin to rewrite the rules of war forever. For most of human history, wars were decided by soldiers, tanks, ships, and aircraft. A powerful army meant having more troops, more tanks, more fighter jets, more missiles. For decades, countries spent billions of dollars creating the most advanced weapons ever built. A modern fighter jet can cost hundreds of millions of dollars. A military tank can cost millions. An aircraft carrier can cost billions. The idea was simple. The country with the biggest and most advanced weapons would have the advantage. But something unexpected happened. A small, cheap technology began changing everything. The drone. A drone is simply a flying machine controlled remotely. Think of it like a flying robot. Instead of a pilot sitting inside, a person on the ground controls it. For years, drones were mostly used for surveillance. They watched. They collected information. They helped armies see what was happening from above. But Ukraine and Russia transformed them into something much more dangerous. They turned drones into weapons. The story begins on February 24th, 2022. On that day, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered what the Russian government called a special military operation. The invasion shocked the world. Many military experts expected Russia, with one of the largest armies on Earth, to quickly overpower Ukraine. Russia had thousands of tanks, hundreds of aircraft, a massive military budget. Ukraine was smaller, but Ukraine had something different. Innovation. And one of the most important tools it used was the drone. At the beginning of the war, one drone became a symbol of Ukraine's resistance. It was called the Bayraktar TB2. This drone was developed by the Turkish company Baykar. The company was founded by brothers including Selçuk Bayraktar, who became one of the most recognized figures in drone technology. The Bayraktar TB2 was not the biggest drone. It was not the fastest, but it was affordable compared to traditional military aircraft. And it could carry weapons. Ukraine had purchased Bayraktar TB2 drones before the invasion. When Russian forces entered Ukraine in 2022, these drones became one of the early symbols of Ukrainian resistance. Imagine a huge military convoy, hundreds of vehicles moving along a road, thousands of soldiers, fuel trucks, command vehicles. From the ground, it is difficult to see everything. But from the sky, the picture changes. A drone can quietly fly above. It can observe. It can send information back, and if it carries weapons, it can attack. This created a new problem for traditional armies. A tank that costs millions of dollars could now be destroyed by a much cheaper flying machine. A question began spreading among military leaders. Why spend millions protecting a vehicle when a cheap drone can destroy it? This was not just a Ukrainian discovery. It was a lesson for the entire world. In the early weeks of the invasion, Russian forces moved toward Ukraine's capital, Kiev. The world watched as a massive Russian military convoy stretched for kilometers outside the city. Ukraine needed a way to slow down a much larger force. Drones became part of the answer. Small groups of Ukrainian operators used drones to find Russian positions and coordinate attacks. The battlefield was becoming something different. Soldiers were no longer fighting only with guns and tanks. They were fighting with information. Who could see first? Who could react faster? Who could strike before the enemy knew they were there? The drone became the eye of the battlefield, and sometimes the weapon of the battlefield. So how did Ukraine build such an effective drone strategy? The answer was not one person. It was a combination of thousands of engineers, soldiers, volunteers, and technology companies. Ukraine had a strong technology sector before the war. Many Ukrainian engineers worked in software development and electronics. When the invasion started, some of those skills moved from computers to the battlefield. They began modifying commercial drones. They added cameras. They improved communication systems. They created cheaper ways to attack enemy targets. A drone that was originally designed to record videos could suddenly become a military tool. This was one of the biggest changes in modern warfare. The battlefield was no longer controlled only by governments and giant defense companies. Small teams could now create powerful weapons. At the beginning of the war, drones were useful. But as the fighting continued, something bigger happened. Ukraine did not just use drones. Ukraine built an entire system around them. A new type of military force began to appear. An army of operators, engineers, programmers, mechanics, and volunteers. But what exactly is a drone army? Is it thousands of machines flying by themselves? Not exactly. A drone army is made of people. People sitting in hidden locations, sometimes inside basements, abandoned buildings, forests, or trenches. They watch screens. They control small aircraft. They analyze information. And they make decisions in seconds. A soldier on the ground might never see the enemy, but a drone operator several kilometers away might see everything. The drone became the soldier's eye in the sky. One of the most important Ukrainian military organizations focused on drones was the Aerorozvidka. The name means aerial reconnaissance. It started before the full-scale invasion, as a group of volunteers interested in using technology for military intelligence. One of its key founders was Yaroslav Honchar. The group began by using drones to collect information, but after Russia invaded in 2022, their role became much more important. They helped combine drones, software, communication systems, and battlefield intelligence. Their approach showed something new. A small group using technology could challenge a much larger military. Now imagine this. A tank crew is sitting inside a vehicle worth several $1 million. The tank is covered with thick armor. The soldiers inside believe they are protected. Then above them, a small drone appears. Not a fighter jet, not a helicopter, just a small machine. It carries an explosive. The operator guides it toward the target. Seconds later, the tank is damaged or destroyed. This is the rise of the FPV drone. FPV means first-person view. It means the operator sees what the drone sees through a camera. It feels almost like controlling a video game. But this is not a game. The decisions are real. The consequences are real. Why did FPV drones become so powerful? Because they were cheap. A traditional military weapon might require years of development and millions of dollars. But many FPV drones can be built using commercial parts. The technology comes from racing drones, cameras, batteries, and computer systems. This created a completely new battlefield equation. A soldier with a cheap drone could threaten a much larger weapon. The question changed from, who has the biggest weapons? To, who can adapt faster? Behind every drone is a human being, a person making decisions, a person watching the battlefield through a screen. Many drone operators in Ukraine were not career soldiers before the war. Some were engineers, some were students, some were ordinary civilians who volunteered after the invasion. They learned quickly because they had no choice. The war forced people to become experts in technology. A programmer could become a drone specialist. A mechanic could become a battlefield technician. A video game player could develop skills useful for controlling FPV drones. The battlefield was changing the type of person who could become a powerful military asset. But Ukraine was not the only country using drones. Russia also adapted. At first, Russia underestimated how important drones would become. But eventually, Russian forces began developing their own drone systems. One of the most famous Russian drones used in the war is the Orlan 10. Russia also began using Iranian-designed attack drones, including the Shahed 136, which became widely used for long-range attacks. The battlefield became a technology race. Ukraine developed new drone tactics. Russia developed countermeasures. Ukraine improved its drones. Russia improved its defenses. Every advantage created a new response. But drones have a weakness. They need communication. A person on the ground must control them, and that creates a problem. What happens if the enemy blocks the signal? This is where electronic warfare enters. Electronic warfare is like fighting with invisible weapons. Instead of shooting a bullet, a military can attack the communication systems that guide drones. They can interfere with signals. They can confuse navigation systems. They can make drones lose control. It became a hidden battle happening in the airwaves. A drone operator might be ready to attack. Then suddenly the screen freezes. The connection disappears. The drone falls. The invisible fight has been won. This created another important lesson. The future of warfare is not only about building better weapons, it is about building smarter systems. A drone alone is not powerful. A drone connected to intelligence, communication, satellites, and trained operators becomes something much more dangerous. Why are countries around the world studying Ukraine? Because this war has answered questions that many militaries were asking for years. Can small drones destroy expensive weapons? Yes. Can technology allow a smaller country to resist a larger one? Yes. Can ordinary commercial technology become a military weapon? Yes. The lessons from Ukraine are being studied by major military powers. The United States, China, European countries. Every military planner is asking, what does the battlefield of tomorrow look like? And the answer may already be flying above Ukraine. So does this mean tanks are useless? Does it mean fighter jets are finished? Does it mean human soldiers will disappear? Not necessarily. War is rarely replaced by one technology. Instead, new technology changes how everything works together. Tanks still matter, aircraft still matter, soldiers still matter, but now they must survive in a battlefield, where the enemy can watch from above at any moment. The future soldier may fight alongside machines. They may receive information from artificial intelligence. They may operate fleets of drones instead of carrying only traditional weapons. The battlefield is becoming faster, smarter, and more connected. The story of Ukraine's drone revolution is not just about machines, it is about adaptation. A country facing a much larger opponent found a new way to fight. It showed that innovation can change the balance of power. A small drone costing hundreds or thousands of dollars can challenge a weapon costing millions. A technology originally created for photography and entertainment became one of the most important military tools of the 21st century. The question is no longer, who has the biggest army? The new question is, who can innovate faster? Because the next great military advantage may not come from the biggest weapon. It may come from the smallest machine, a machine flying silently above the battlefield, changing warfare forever.